I was not planning on doing makeup like this, but it just happened. And I've realised I accidentally cosplayed as Call Me Chris's character, Bex. Can you see it? Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new around here, hello, welcome, my name is Charlotte. Today we're going to do my April wrap up, and I'm just going to put a disclaimer out here now. I am filming this on the last day of April because I don't know when I'm going to be able to film next, and also because of that reason, this is a very slumpy month. I don't have a lot to talk about. I have about 4 books to talk about, and I've only fully read 2 of them. I have no films to talk about, and I have 1 TV show to talk about. Maybe 1.5. April has been a very slumpy month for me, and that is because I've gone back to work. April the 12th in England, all the shops, all outdoor hospitality opened, so I went back to the job that I had back in November. So I've just been working. So I haven't had the time to read or watch. But I'm still going to wrap up my thoughts, and at least that means this video won't be too long, hopefully. So we're just going to jump in and start with the books that I have read this month. So the first book that I read this month was a reread, and that was Shadow and Bone. We all know why I reread this book. It was Shadow and Bone month. I reread this for the show, which of course I will be talking about later. I definitely enjoyed rereading this more than when I read it for the first time. I think when I originally read it for the first time, I was in a very busy state of mind, so I wasn't really connecting with the book as much as I could have been, but I read this before I went back to work, so all my mind and all my thoughts was on this book. I think before, when I read it for the first time, I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I think I'm giving it now a 4 out of 5 stars. Yes, I know the flaws. Yes, I know it's not a perfect piece of literature, but I had a lot of fun. I definitely engaged with the story more and knew what was going on more and understood the world more this time round. And as I said, I just had a lot of fun being with these characters and picturing these characters differently now that I know the journey that they go through across the whole Grishaverse, and also kind of having a face for the characters now that we have the casting and now that we know who was going to be playing them or is playing them in the TV show. I did have just so much fun rereading this, and I think I've decided both through rereading this and watching the TV show, which obviously I'll talk in more depth later as I said, I think I'm more of a Melina stan, but also not shipping either of them. I do see and I do understand that Alina and the Darkling in this world, in the character that Alina is, just shouldn't work and doesn't work. But in the series, in the book, I don't love Mal a lot and I don't love him enough to be hardcore Melina. But if I had to pick, it would be Melina. But at the end of the day, Alina doesn't need a man. She is fine by herself. Like, she just needs growth by herself. The next book that I read this month was one to kind of give me a bit of a palate cleanser, because I was going to read like back-to-back Grishaverse books this month to prepare for the show, but then I realised I'm just not that sort of reader. I don't like binging series because I need a palate cleanser. I can't consume the same story at once, it's just too much. So I read this book as a palate cleanser, and I do have a Grisha reading vlog going up soon. I don't know if it's going to be before or after this video. If it's after, I will link it, but if it's not, stay tuned for it. But the book I did read for my palate cleanser was Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. I've had this book since February and I've been meaning to read it for so long. I was so excited when this book was announced because I will consume anything that Angie Thomas reads. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars and it was just so good. If you don't know, Concrete Rose follows the main character of The Hate U Give star, her dad Maverick. So we're following Maverick as he's about 17, he's in his final year at high school, and he finds out that this girl that he slept with, who had a kid, that the kid is his, which we find out becomes 7 that we know from The Hate U Give. And it's him dealing with now having a kid and having to tell his girlfriend that, and also having to deal with the decision of, does he want to get out of the drug and the gangs within his city, within his little area. He knows that he will get more money by being in gangs and by drug dealing, but obviously it's a lot more dangerous, and yes, it will give him more money to provide for his kid, but also it can screw him and his kid over in the future. So this book deals with a lot. It deals with shootings, it deals with drug dealing and drugs and gangs, and also toxic masculinity within black men. That was a topic that was talked about within this book that I just loved. I loved how it was spoken and how it was talked about. Basically, Maverick starts working at his corner shop, or it's just obviously one of the kind of grocery stores in town that he knows the owners. When Maverick goes through a really traumatic experience, Maverick has always been taught to conceal his feelings and to not cry and to bottle it all up, because he's not just a man, but he's a black man. And his boss, the guy he works for, says, we as black men have always been told that we cannot show our feelings. But that is completely false, and if we are feeling these things, and if we are feeling like a whole world is crumbling around us, we should be able to let it all out. We should be able to show our emotions. And I just absolutely loved that topic and how that was discussed. And it just dealt with toxic masculinity within the black community and just issues that black people and black men specifically really deal with. I absolutely love Angie Thomas's writing style. It took a couple of pages to really get into it, but it's such a conversational and such a realistic writing style. You're reading it as if Maverick would talk. It is written how a black man from the 90s would either think and talk, and it's just so good. I adored this book so much. It's definitely on par with The Hate U Give, and it's just so nice seeing characters that you know and recognise from The Hate U Give pop up in this, obviously when they were younger. Maverick Carter has my heart. Before, he was just Star's dad and that was it, but now he has my heart. You just get to see so many different layers of Maverick, and I adored him. He's just phenomenal. Such a good book. So the next book that I read, once again, was a reread, but I ended up DNFing this. Not because I hated it, I loved it, it was amazing, just because I was hitting a bit of a slump, and it got to kind of like the deadline of when I wanted to finish this book, and I was like halfway through, so I kind of put it down. It's my first DNF of the year, but we're gonna look past that, and that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Obviously, after reading Concrete Rose, I wanted to pick this one up in preparation for the show, but because I wasn't reading as much as I wanted to, I only got halfway through it when I got to the 23rd, the day that the show came out, and that meant I read like half of it in over a week. What I did reread of this book, I just adored. I can definitely agree that the first half of this book is very slow, because initially you are just getting to know the characters, you're just meeting them and really getting to know their backstories. You get a lot of flashback scenes in the first half. For someone who is just Grishaverse obsessed at the moment, and forever will be now, this was just so good. I just love being back with these characters and reminding myself of these characters, because I read this duology before I read the Grishaverse trilogy, and I read it like 2-3 years ago, so it was nice to kind of re-remind myself of some stuff and realise how much I'd actually forgotten. It was mainly to kind of re-remind myself of it for the TV show, which I'm so glad I did, because I think I definitely did reread enough in preparation for the show. So when I was watching the show, there was stuff being like, oh my god, I remember that from Six of Crows, I remember those lines from Six of Crows. I just absolutely love these characters so much. Kaz, Inej, Jesper, Wylan, Nina, Matthias. Even though Matthias is a little bit annoying in the first half, because if you don't know him and you don't know the journey he goes on, if it's your first time reading it, you are meeting him being really horrible and really judgmental towards Grisha and towards Nina, because obviously the Theodens think that Grisha are like demon spawn. So obviously his preconceptions of Nina and of Grisha are just very much like, you're the witches, you're devils. So you are there being like, I don't like this guy, he's being really horrible, he's really judgmental and really prejudiced. But as someone who knows their journey and knows the history of Nina and Matthias and knows what they go on, I just love them all. But I did just have so much fun, and I'm hoping at some point I will reread this book properly. And the final book that I want to talk about is one that obviously I started about a week ago, and I'm currently still rereading, and I'm about halfway through, or I probably will be by the end of the day, and that is Rule of Wolves. The dust jacket is beautiful, and so is this book. Like, look at that shine on from my ring light. Gorgeous. Rule of Wolves is the second and final book in the Nikolai duology, I think that's what it's called, and it's following 3 characters that we know from the Grishaverse. It's following Nikolai, that we know from the Shadow and Bone trilogy, it's following Zoria, which we know from the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and it's following Nina, which we know from the Six of Crows duology. The first book I actually really liked. I think a lot of people didn't, but I really did. I had so much fun reading it, and the ending, as the person I am, got me shook. So I was very excited to read this. I was going to wait for it to come out in paperback, but then I realised I couldn't wait. So far, I'm loving this book. At first, it took me a little bit to get into it because I had forgotten a lot about what happened in King of Scars, even though I didn't think I did. But once you get into the plot and you are reminded of what happened in King of Scars, it is juicy, it is fun, it is adventurous, and it just warms my heart because there's so many people in this from the Grishaverse. It's crazy. I'm not going to say anything because obviously it'd be fat spoilers, not just for King of Scars but for the Grishaverse. And I know a lot of you have probably already read this and know that there's something crazy that happens at the end. I haven't got there yet. And I'm terrified because I've heard a lot of people like crying and dying over it. And I will probably talk about the rest of this book in my May wrap up because obviously I will read half of it in May. I'm just having so much fun reading this, and I am Grishaverse obsessed right now, so of course I'm having fun. So that is it for all the books that I have read in the month of April. I have 0 films to talk about this month, which is really rare for me. I at least have a couple of films to talk about. But with work, I just haven't been able to watch anything. I did watch half of the film. It wasn't like I didn't like it. The only reason why I just didn't finish it was because it's another adaptation of a very popular story that I have watched loads of times and we all know very well. And the only reason I was watching it was because of who was in it. And I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I don't really have the time to watch it. And I have to concentrate on it because of the language. So I decided it's fine, I don't mind. If I want to watch it sometime in the future, I will. And that is a new National Theatre version of Romeo and Juliet starring Josh O'Connor. And obviously the reason why I was having to concentrate a lot while watching it is because it's Shakespearean. Alongside this whole video, I haven't actually watched a lot of TV shows this month. I will just talk about quickly how I watched the majority of Falcon and the Winter Soldier this month because the majority of the episodes I think came out this month. Had a grand old time. Definitely don't think it was as good as WandaVision, which I'm kind of sad about because it involved characters that I really love from Marvel, but I still had a lot of fun watching it, and Sam and Bucky have my heart, and it was nice to see a lot of characters just pop up, and it was just, as a Marvel fan, it was a lot of fun. John Walker can take a walk. I know they tried to give him some sort of redemption at the end and left a cliffhanger for him at the end, but he can take a walk. We don't stand this man in this house. The ending, the last episode was just so great to see what happened with Sam and to see him become the person and become who not just we want him to be, but what Steve wanted to be and what basically he deserves to be. And it was also nice just to see Bucky grow and get through a lot of trauma that he's obviously dealt with from his past and from being the Winter Soldier. But of course, the one show that I'm going to be talking about full is what you've all probably been expecting and been waiting for, maybe, I don't know. It's of course Shadow and Bone. I could do a whole video talking about this show, and hey, I did a watching vlog for this. So if you want to see my live, real-time, more in-depth thoughts about this show, link in the description. I pretty much watched this in 8 hours. It would have been less, but I needed to make lunch, needed to have a shower. But I watched it pretty much back to back because that was what I planned to do, and I always knew I was going to do that. I obviously went into the show very excited. I had very high expectations, but also was very nervous and did know that it could let me down. It's a week since I watched it, and in that week I've watched cast interviews, I've watched like crack videos, you know, the like fan edit videos, and this show is so good. It is done so well. I was so nervous about the merging of the storylines of, you know, Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. It was just so true to the books, even though they did change stuff because obviously they had to write the Six of Crows characters into the Shadow and Bone storyline. It was just so true to the books. The characters were just so true to the books. All the cast were amazing. I became a Mal stan. I became a Melina stan. I can safely say that for the TV show, I stan Melina. Ben was fantastic, but obviously he was going to be either way. Kaz and Inej, I realised I think this week, even though I knew it last week, have my heart. I just love their relationship in the show. I love how it was presented. I'm going to spoil it a little bit here. We talk about the time that Inej killed a man for Kaz, and all the times that Kaz said to her certain people aren't great or not as good as you, or that he's never believed in saints because they haven't been there for him, unlike Inej. All this stuff of him basically just admitting that he can't breathe without her. And then at the end when they were on the skiff and he like beat a Vokra to death with his cane to save her, like Nina and Matthias were amazing as well. I loved seeing their journey going from the ship to obviously land, which, as I said, as I was talking about Six of Crows, is very similar and is very true to their story in the books, and even down to some of the lines. And I have the biggest crush on Danielle Gallagher. I loved Elena, of course. Who was not going to love Elena? She was so powerful. All the other kind of side characters such as Zoya and Jenya and David, they all have my heart. But of course I can't talk about my feelings about the show without talking about Jesper. He definitely was the underdog in this show, even though fans of the books know that Jesper's amazing and know that he's comedic genius and that he's just so sassy and just so sharp-witted because obviously sharpshooter, but he really did shine through in the show. And I really loved how full frontal the producers and the writers put him and made him such an amazing character, and Kit did him so well. As much as I love Ben Barnes and as much as I love the Darkling and as much as I love all the characters in the show, Jesper, Kit was the best. He just punched down those barriers and he broke through. And Milo, and I can't wait to see more of Jesper. And when Wylan gets introduced, it's over for us. When we see Jesper falling in love with Wylan, it's over for us. Once I get the time to, and I have time to, I'm definitely going to rewatch it. I'm so grateful and so happy that this show turned out how we wanted it to be and perfect for me in my eyes. Obviously it's not 100% perfect because obviously some things can be done differently. Nothing can be perfect, but it was great. And I'm so happy. So that is it for my April wrap up. At least it's a little bit shorter. I've only been filming for like 25 minutes. Usually I film for like nearly an hour. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have read or watched. Hopefully you have watched Shadow and Bone. But just any of your thoughts on the stuff that I watched and read in the month of April. I hope you all enjoyed Shadow and Bone as much as I did. If you want more Grisha themed videos from me, obviously I will be putting up my Grisha themed reading vlog. I have reading vlogs when I read the trilogy for the first time. I have my Shadow and Bone trailer reactions. I have my Shadow and Bone watching vlog. I will probably create a Grisha playlist, put all those videos in there for you guys to go and watch and to check out. If you're new around here, do not forget to subscribe, turn my notification bell on so you know when I'm next going to post. All my social media links are linked in the description below. And with that all said and done, I'll see you all in my next video.